Anniversary of the Abraham Accords. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Brian Glenn here live once again at America First Policy Institute. This is a part of their speaker series that we have been covering the last year or so that really addresses several topics that's going on in the world today. We're going to have Mark Lauder come up here and join us here in a few minutes and talk about what we can expect today. But we're going to be talking about the historic agreement between Israel and the United Arabs and the Middle East. It was essentially bringing peace in the Middle East, and that is called the Abraham Accords. And we're going to talk about the impact on the world, the impact that it's had here in this country, and really the amount of peace that it's brought in that region of the world, adversely to what's going on in other parts of the world. And of course, under the presidency of President Donald J. Trump, we had world peace. We had peace in the Middle East, and he was one to bring all of that together. So we're glad you're joining us, and whatever platform you're watching us on, thank you so much. We are happy to be able to bring this content to you today. I want to remind everybody, if you want to download our app, you got to simply go to your Apple, your Android store, and download our app. It's absolutely free to do so. So we're going to be the event today kicks off at around 11:30. It's right behind me. We've got a group of probably about 75 to 100 chairs in this room, from what I understand. We'll let you get a quick shot of that. From what I understand, it is well, it's been RSVP'd out. This room will be filled. The doors just opened here slightly a few moments ago for guests to come in, but you've got several guest speakers lined up for today. You've got people, Joni Ernst will be here. Linda McMahon will speak as well. Jared Kushner, who is basically over the Abraham Accords Institute. We'll talk a little bit about this, but it's really about going over and trying to understand the impact that this agreement had on the world. And in fact, as far as being the driver for peace in the Middle East. But we're glad you're joining us, and remember, you can also go follow us on all of our social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe to us on our Rumble page. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Truth Social as well. Now, on a side note, there is a lot of media here for this event today. Now, we have had the opportunity to cover very different topics from the speaker series here at America First Policy Institute, and the media coverage sometimes has not been as much as it is today. Today, there's a lot, and I don't know if it's on purely speculation that perhaps President Donald J. Trump will make an appearance here. I don't know that. Can't confirm that. Can't deny that. We don't book his schedule. But if you probably noticed in the news this morning that there was, he is in the D.C. area, so we don't know the purpose of that visit, but maybe that might be one of the reasons why we have a little bit added level of press interest in this building today. We don't know that. But if we went over some of the things that the Abraham Accords did, and we'll bring Mark Lauder on here in just a second, it really was the olive branch to world peace and in that region of the world. You have United Emirates, you had Israel, you had really just a mutual understanding of their differences and how they should work together and come together as culturally speaking to understand each other's differences and perhaps some of the things they do agree on. And that's one of the things that they were able to bring people together under the Trump administration. And of course, Jared Kushner was a big part of that, and we'll hear from him today as well. But we're glad that you're joining us, and of course we'll get with Mark Lauder here in a few minutes to talk a little bit more about what the mission of America First Policy Institute is all about. Actually, Mark's joining us right now. I have you come on in here. I was just setting up the fact that this seems like the interest level for this particular topic is big. We've had other topics that we've covered, and it's been a great turnout. But today, there's a lot of interest in what we're going to talk about.
I think there really is, and it's really great to see this big of a crowd here and getting here early. In fact, I think it does show the excitement. I think the Abraham Accords is probably one of the greatest accomplishments in foreign policy, not just of the Trump administration, but of our country in recent decades. It really was a fundamental changing of how America approached Middle East peace, and it works, much like so much else what the former president did.
Yeah, when you look at the world under the the Trump administration compared to what the world looks like under the Biden administration, it is a drastic difference. It's a leadership. It's strength through leadership. You got to be strong and use some force, and that worked under the Trump administration.
Well, and I think one of the greatest things about the Abraham Accords, which obviously under the leadership of the president, Jared Kushner, who we'll be seeing here later this morning, was that it was a fundamental rethinking of how do we approach Middle East peace. For 40 years, under Republican and Democrat administrations, most of Middle East peace revolved around Israel and Palestine, and you were on one side or the other. And what I think the Abraham Accord showed was that let's deal with our commonalities. And there are so many countries that don't need to have, while they may have ideological differences or religious differences, that doesn't have to be the defining moment. We can be friends and confront our common threat, which is Iran, and stop viewing Israel as the common threat. And now you see countries like the United Arab Emirates, you see Bahrain, Morocco, Jordan, Egypt, all coming together, removing tariffs, working together with the state of Israel, and dealing with Middle East peace from what can we accomplish together. And if the Palestine question wants to come into play, then they need to have, to make the changes. We're not telling you what those changes are, but this is your opportunity to make those changes to join the larger community.
Mark Lauder joining us here on the pre-show, building up to the start of this, which is 11:30 here locally. Let's go into some of the speakers that we're going to hear from. Honestly, the Honorable Jared Kushner is going to speak, but so is Linda McMahon.
Linda McMahon, you're going to have ambassadors on the stage. You'll have obviously a former leaders in the foreign policy establishment that were along with the president and his team. So, I mean, this was really a team effort, but I think it shows the strength of the team that was brought together by the president, by Jared Kushner. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see Jared here today to join with America First policy to celebrate this, because we've got to look at the Abraham Accords not as a singular moment, a singular document. It's really a mindset, but it's also a mindset carrying forward today. Even if there is another administration, even if they're trying to go back to the failed policies of the past, these countries are now thinking about things differently, approaching each other differently. So I think that's what you're going to see from a variety of different speakers today, each highlighting how this changed not just their worldview, but really how all nations should be working together.
It's interesting, Mark, because as we talk to followers and Trump rallies and things like that, I'll always ask them, what are some of the greatest accomplishments under the Trump administration? A lot of them say he moved the embassy to Israel. He did something that no other leader, no other president said. They said they were going to do it, but they never did. He did it, and I think that really stands out.
I really do, too, and I think it's one of the things, I think you and I have talked about this in the past. So one of the reasons why I think Donald Trump was elected in 2016 was because you had people on both sides of the aisle who were just sick and tired of being lied to by politicians from both sides of the aisle. Because you had every president since Clinton running on the fact that they were going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. They'd signed the law. But then the national foreign policy establishment were basically telling, no, you can't do this. This is going to cause war in the Middle East. And Donald Trump said no. And by the way, it didn't cause war in the Middle East. It didn't do any of these things that the so-called foreign policy establishment feared. It actually set the stage for we're going to approach things differently, and we're going to get the job done.
If you remember when President Trump said he was going to visit North Korea, the media, the left, everyone went crazy and said he's going to start a nuclear war. He's going to go over there and start. That obviously did not happen. I think the strength that President Trump showed as far as national security and really developing peace around the world is something that we desperately need right now. But North Korea is a great example of that. He went over there to visit Young Jong Il, and
I think it's one of the great examples, because so much of foreign policy is like, well, you're going to give legitimacy to this leader or that regime or not. That's not my choice. I don't get to say who the leader of another country is, nor should they be saying who our leaders are. So we will deal with those people. We'll deal with them from a position of strength. But we also have to stop telling other countries what they must be doing. We can have our standards. We can have our expectations if you want to be a partner with the United States. And I think that was what you saw in North Korea. You saw that in the dealings with China. You see it in the dealings with the Middle East. You're also seeing it with Iran, where you have this current administration going back on all of those failed policies that President Trump righted, and they're going to go back and just do the same old failed thing again.
Let's talk about that for a second, because that's one of the pillars here at America First Policy Institute. It's about it's international foreign policy. It's, of course, it's all domestic economic strength, things like. To go back and undo these things is so detrimental to our country, and we're seeing that as far as oil. We're now bending a knee to countries that we're trying to buy oil from them, when at one point we were 100% energy independence, which is huge. Let's talk about how crucial and how detrimental it is right now for this administration that we have now that goes back and undoes all of these things that President Trump laid out.
And you see it playing out on the world stage right now, whether it's the botched, Afghanistan withdrawal, which President Trump set the stage for a successful into that campaign and withdrawal. The Biden administration pulled the plug on it, did their own thing, and we saw what happened, which also then prompted Russia to invade Ukraine. I mean, let's remember, there is only one president this century where Russia did not invade one of its neighbors. That was during the administration of Donald J. Trump. There was a reason for that, because he knew that America was strong. He knew that we were safer when America is strong, and we project that strength. I mean, let's go and let's look to see what's going on in Europe right now. They are scrambling under the sanctions and energy of Russia, which Donald Trump told them not to do. Don't build Nord Stream 2. What did this administration do? They lifted the sanctions on it. Well, they took away the Keystone Pipeline. They enabled Nord Stream 2. Now you see East Europe, all of a sudden in an economic crisis because Russia is now controlling their energy supply, the exact same thing Donald Trump told them not to do.
I read an article just yesterday that was going to criminalize if you left your AC below a certain point over in Europe. It was now a crime if you were to do that. That's the energy crisis that they're in over there. And of course, President Donald J. Trump warned that this would happen, just as to your point. Let's talk about Trump's in town. And I said this earlier. We have no idea why he's in town. We don't book the schedule. We have no idea. But it does have. He didn't ask. There is a certain buzz in this city, though, right now. That's from leaving my hotel to come here and being in this room right now, that the greatest president of our lifetime and probably the most polarizing human being on this earth is in D.C. right now. There's something special about that.
It always is. I mean, the fact that, I don't ever recall a former president, getting that much energy, that much buzz, and just coming back here to this city for, obviously I'm not sure what he's doing today, but, I think it shows that America's crying out for leadership. And I was talking the other day, I was doing an interview on another network, and they were talking about how polarizing, and they talked about how the president was polarizing. But I said, you look at the America First agenda, which we're out there in town hall meetings. I was in Cincinnati on Friday hosting a town hall. Every issue in that agenda is an 80-20, 70-30 issue. It's not polarizing. People want lower gas prices. They want the inflation gotten control of. They want security at the border, election integrity, a strong national defense. Crime. Yeah, right. It's not polarizing. And when you talk to the American people about it in such a way that you don't say America First or Donald Trump or Joe Biden, if you deal with the issues, they want success. They want answers for these issues. We're providing it. And I think the more and more we're out there doing these events across the country. We've been in Iowa, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania. I think we're going to be in North Carolina in a week or so. The more people just hear about the answers to the problems they face, we're giving them the answers they want. Give us a chance. We already proved it worked. Let's do it again. And I think we're going to see that.
If we have some people tuning in right now and you're not familiar with America First Policy Institute, let's get a little bit of backstory on that. Let's kind of unpack some things. Relatively new organization in terms of longevity, but let's talk about the history.
Yeah, I mean, this was really the dream of Brooke Rollins, our president and CEO. She was the head of the Domestic Policy Council in the White House under President Trump. And then obviously when the results of the 2020 election became clear, it was, what do we do with this great talent? All of these great, not just people who think about stuff, but the people who are in the administration alongside the president doing it, putting it into action. So as opposed to spreading out to universities and think tanks and corporations across the country, which is normally what happens when an administration ends, they brought it together here with Linda McMahon, Larry Kudlow, and Brooke to put it all under one roof, and then to prepare the way for the next America First administration, whether that is in Congress in 2023 and hopefully again in the White House in 2025. I was on the campaign in 16. I was on the transition in 17 into the White House. We didn't have a group like this that came ready with.
You wish you did.
I wish we did. With the policies, the regulations, the proposed legislation, the stack of resumes of the people who are there and ready to go get the job done. And that's what we're ready to provide, whomever that person will be. we don't know obviously what's going to happen in 2022, and we don't know who is running or who's not running in 2024. But we'll get through that process. And the great thing is whoever gets that leadership spot, whether it's the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, or the President of the United States, we know that they're going to be ready because of the work that's being done at America First Policy Institute.
Mark Lauder joining us on the pre-show here, getting ready to celebrate the second anniversary of the Abraham Accords. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll kind of fill you in throughout the broadcast. A lot of people don't understand exactly what it was called. They just know that Trump provided peace in the Middle East, and that that kind of settled that area and that region of the world that was so volatile. I mean, you got to understand, like that conflict, those disagreements between those countries, it could be very, very dangerous to world peace. But we'll go into that here in a little bit. But to your point, you guys are really laying out a great information tool for people even watching us right now that want to get into public service. We've talked about this before. If you want to run for city council, you want to run for your school board, your website is a great resource for that.
It really is, and we're going to even make it better. But we've got 22 different policy centers on just about anything and everything under the sun that you can think of, and we have an America First leader from inside that administration ready to help lay out those policies. So if you want to run for, from the State House to the White House, you can actually go there, look at those policies, have the academic research behind it, and then tailor make it to your race, to the needs of your community, your state, your neighborhood. And that's where I think one of the great things that Brooke is focusing on